How legal recreational cannabis can impact your ability to travel to the United States was a hot topic here at the University of Toronto today. Now, the Go North conference that focused on bringing international business to Canada also touched on potential issues that you could have at U.S. border crossings.
So the Customs and Border Agency in the United States has actually come up with a clarification regarding travel to the United States for Canadians that are in the legitimate cannabis industry in Canada. And that clarification is that if the purpose of your travel to the United States has nothing to do with the cannabis industry in the United States, then you won't be turned away or deemed inadmissible. But you have to be very careful because if the purpose of your trip has anything even remotely to do with your business, then you can be deemed inadmissible for life.
So, I mean, this is a billion-dollar industry that is, just really starting up in Canada. And we know that there are some legal states in the United States. There's Colorado, Washington, and California. So if you're from Canada and you want to do some business in those three states, you can't do that.
You can't do that because crossing over the border is governed by federal law, and cannabis possession, consumption, distribution is still completely illegal under United States federal law.
This is the tip of the iceberg in terms of divergent laws that are happening in Canada. So more than just cannabis, other things like doctor-assisted suicide in Canada. Are people working in those industries going to have troubles crossing the borders? Are individuals, in terms of sex workers, we're getting new legislation on that. If it's legal here and not legal there, is that going to start to have problems with people crossing the border? So I think that cannabis is kind of giving us a test case into what's going to happen at the border as we have more and more different or divergent views and laws in Canada and the United States.
Now, today's panel, which consisted of 3 Toronto lawyers, said that those who want to get involved in the billion-dollar cannabis industry need to understand the risks and need to understand that doing business in the United States likely will not be an option, at least for now. Now, coming up a little later on in the show, Colorado's cannabis czar was in Toronto today, and he'll give us a grade on how our rollout of recreational weed has gone so far. Almost a month into the legalization of recreational weed, and Colorado's former cannabis czar was in town today. Andrew Friedman played a major role in how all of that unfolded in Colorado about 5 years ago, and he's been keeping a close eye on what's happening here in Canada. Today, I got to pick his brain about some of the warnings and benefits of legalization. Hi, while driving, there just doesn't seem to be that reliable technology. Have you seen in Colorado an increase of people driving high?
It's hard just because of what you just said. There's not a test for intoxication, but what we have seen is an increase in people involved in fatal accidents testing positive for THC. Active THC, which means they've used in the last 3 to 4 hours.
A product's THC content is very important. That's because THC is the cannabinoid that's primarily responsible for the intoxicated effects you get after consuming cannabis.
In the long term, I think we have to worry that commercialization will try to force people to smoke more or to consume more over a longer period of time, and we have to guard against that.
Every human body has a unique system that interacts with cannabis in its own way.
Are pot companies or pot producers allowed to advertise, or are there strict restrictions on things like that?
We've put essentially the same restrictions that exist for tobacco on marijuana. So far they have not been up on TV or on radio, and so we really are trying to clamp down on that.
I'm sure you've been keeping tabs on what's been going on here in Canada. Yeah. It's a little different because it's an entire country. What's your view on how Canada's been doing so far?
I've been impressed by Canada to date. I think that they're far ahead of us in the conversation of this being a public health approach rather than just something that they're doing for profit or commercialization.
Okay, so that's positive. We do have some hiccups, though. I mean, in Ontario, I'm sure you've heard, we can only get weed online, and it's not really getting delivered properly. There's labeling issues, and the black market is still thriving at this point.
Yeah, all of that stuff is just going to take time.
Growing pains.
Yeah, I mean, You would like it to be perfect on day one, but the truth is you're getting up and running with a multi-billion-dollar industry. And really, it did take a couple of years for the black market to go away in Colorado as established purchasers got up and running, and grows have to grow. And I'm fairly certain that Canada will be the world leader in this issue in years to come. Right now, people are looking to Colorado, and I think in 5 years, people will be looking to Canada.
Okay, so if you could give us a grade, what would that be?
Honestly, so far, I've been impressed. I think you guys have an A so far.
Now, for the first few years in Colorado, residents were allowed to grow up to 99 marijuana plants per household. Friedman says that was just way too much. That was a ridiculous number. Recently, the laws have been changed and the limit lowered to just 12 plants. And of course, here in Canada, we're allowed to grow up to 4 plants per household.